I've also done that in part as well. I've also gone and looked at a party I've been at the day after and see who else was at it, who I didn't meet, and start talking to them. And it has also worked out for me. I have to say that I was able to meet up with a girl and start a relationship of sorts, we'll say, with a girl here in Odessa. Привет and greetings from Odessa Mama on an absolutely fantastic Indian summer's evening. And in today's Vodka Vodcast with me, Connor Klein, we're going to discuss why Instagram is the best dating site for meeting beautiful women in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova in Eastern Europe, or this segment of Eastern Europe, depending on how you define Eastern Europe. And this video is the result of many conversations I've been having with clients, with friends, with other guys who I've met who've come here, some of like Ukrainian, Russian origin, who are super high value, wealthy, dynamic, plugged in guys. And basically the consensus is that as a website or as an app, the best one in order to meet and definitely to create value towards or be attractive to the beautiful women here in Eastern Europe is one that's completely free and not officially a dating site, and that is Instagram, right? So Instagram is the best dating site. I would say Instagram is probably, with the exception of actually moving here and spending a lot of time here, probably the best way to meet beautiful women in this region at the moment. So today's episode, I'm going to go into a little bit. First of all, I'm going to go into why Instagram is such a good site in order to meet beautiful women on, or app, right? Because it's mainly an app in your phone, even though it has a web browser version, and also then how you can use it to either meet women or increase the chance of you meeting women from Eastern Europe, either from outside, maybe you're sitting at home in America or in Western Europe or Latin America or Asia or Africa or somewhere else, Australia even, how you can use it from there, and also how you can use it to your advantage when you come here to, say, Odessa in Ukraine, somewhere in Eastern Europe anyways. So the first thing to be aware of is that all women in Eastern Europe, and actually in fact all over the world, are now pretty easily discoverable by all the guys in the world via apps and websites. And Instagram is definitely an extremely popular website that women are on, or app that they use. I mean, you just look around here on a daily basis. You go to a cafe or a restaurant and you see most of the women in say Odessa, because I happen to be in Odessa, they spend a lot of time glued to their phones. And if you go in and have a look, probably going to be Instagram that they're on. So their eyeballs are glued onto this particular app. And because they have profiles there that are accessible for free to, unless they make it private, which very few of them do, but we'll say they leave it an open profile, which is the common default for most women here. Basically any guy, whether he's in Egypt, Australia, Lebanon, Siberia, up in Canada, Alaska, Bolivia, Argentina, they can all not only see them and discover them, but in fact even write to them unsolicited. It's pretty crazy actually when you think about it, right? And the reason they're able to do that is because, well, the app provides so much value in principle to these girls, and also it's not presented as a dating app. There's nothing weird or sleazy about it. Like, no one's going to judge you for being on Instagram, at least in Eastern Europe for sure. Maybe in some more conservative countries that would be the case. And it's also not a dating site. It's not like Tinder where you have to explain why you on Tinder, and people are going to say, oh, she's on Tinder. Everyone's on Instagram and everybody is discoverable. Now on top of that, as a result of that, basically you have the internationalization of beauty. So what does that mean? I actually have a full vodcast about that topic. I'll put it down below, link in the description, also up in a card somewhere there. I'm never sure which side it's on. And the bottom line is, because everybody, also men are discovered, I guess, but that's not normally the way that we operate as a species. But basically because the most beautiful women in the world, even if they live in a tiny, isolated village in Siberia, or maybe here out in the backwoods near to Odessa and Odessa Oblast, basically none of them are that isolated anymore. And there's definitely a strata of both guys and girls who are, just by virtue of the fact that, every city or country or the planet, we could say that there's a market for dating, right? But now it's been internationalized. There used to be a geographical barrier. So we'll say, like, let's say when this was still the Soviet Union, it was really hard to come here, right? So, and it was very hard to leave. So basically all the women were trapped here anonymously, and they would basically look for the hotshot guy probably within their proximity, whether it happens to be a village, maybe they're from a big city like Odessa, or maybe the capital Kiev, or maybe they're in Moscow, and they had that set of options that they could come into contact with. And men, it was the same, right? They would look around and see, in the geographical location, basically, unless they happen to be traveling within the Soviet Union from one city to the other. But they couldn't leave so easy, and foreigners couldn't come. So basically that option was pretty much close to impossible to do. It's extremely rare. Nowadays, basically, if the local hottie in a village in Siberia is open and to meeting foreigners at all, she's probably going to be written by several of them per day if she's that attractive looking, at least in her Instagram photos. And in order to verify this, you should just ask. Obviously you have to know a beautiful Ukrainian, Russian, Moldovan, or Belarusian one from probably from any country, even from the States, and you just ask to look into their the tab where it's like people they don't know who writes them. Again, what we call the unsolicited messages or whatever, where it goes to that tab, and just see how many guys slide into their DMs every day, commenting about how beautiful they are. They want to take them on a trip somewhere. It is phenomenal, and I've done that a few times here in Eastern Europe, and it's really interesting to see what all these guys write them, how much they offer them just based on their photos that they see on Instagram. So as a result of that, the market is not really local. You could say that definitely for very beautiful girls, so maybe just in general, everything has become internationalized to a certain extent. Every girl is discoverable, and a lot of celebrities, guys who have bigger social media than me for sure, like maybe upwards of close to 1 million or plus, quite often they will actually just reach out to girls that they see with a certain amount of social media following and whose photos they obviously like, when they're about to go to their city, or actually just invite them to come hang out with them just over Instagram, which is pretty crazy, right? And they just basically use, I would say, their personal brand. And that's what Instagram is. It's kind of like personal brand building in order to leverage that for dating and their social media presence to actually get better dating options. Really, really interesting to see it work in practice. Now, I'm not saying that every single girl in Ukraine, Belarus, or Russia wants to fly off to Dubai to be with an Arabic sheikh who's there willing to just fly them out and throw lots of money at them. There's probably only a certain number of girls they're going to invite for that anyways, and the girls have to be open. You have maybe a good bit below that called what we call travel girls. They're kind of open to any sort of invitation. And obviously you have a lot of prostitution also works over Instagram. There's actually a website, I think it's called Tag the Sponsor, was it? It was from a few years ago, where they actually catfished a lot of girls with big social media followings and posed as a prospective client for their sexual services, and said lots of crazy things. And a lot of these girls with whatever, it happened to be 100,000, 500,000 followers, were just like, yeah, this is the money I want, blah, 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 blah. So everything can be internationalized basically because of the technological advancements. So in general, I'm not saying that all women just are then like, okay, hottest guy in Dubai, I fly out to him. They probably, if I were to look at just, this is more anecdotal, it's obviously my personal experience here, I would say the most beautiful girls in general, they all pretty much universally like the idea of traveling and going to new places and sampling new cultures. But especially in Ukraine, it can be different in Belarus and Russia, they're not really that keen to actually leave. It's not their main priority. Finding a high value local guy, where it happens to be, in this case, Russian, Ukrainian, or Belarusian, Moldovan, or a foreigner who they consider high value here, and then travel a lot with them, actually what I think the majority of them would prefer in general. Now, of course, they can meet guys who come here on a trip, or they go traveling themselves, and then Instagram also plays into that. So I'm going to address that now, exactly how, depending on your situation, you can use Instagram to your advantage. So first, let's take the guys, well, the guys probably watching this, maybe it's you as well, who are not currently in Eastern Europe. Now, of course, you can go on Instagram, and this is not exactly new information if you look at the pretty girls' Instagram here, but there are lots of guys. Normally, a lot of them tend to be from places like Turkey or the Middle East, but also you see it from Western Europeans quite a lot as well. Also Israelis, that they basically go and they look at the geotag for a club. Geotag's actually not so open anymore, or they find a way to figure out girls' sites, or it gets suggested to them if they happen to be looking for a lot of beautiful women from this region, and they look at their stories. They're the short clips they're put in Instagram, and they slide into the DMs and they make a comment, or they put a comment under their photo, and they start writing to them. Now, of course, if you come across as a thirsty beta male, desperate, then probably you're going to get ignored, especially by the hottest girls for sure. But certain guys are able to project with their personal branding, because that's what a lot of basically dating on Instagram is, that they have a certain kind of lifestyle that's interesting in the country that they're based. So maybe they are actually in Dubai. Let's take Dubai because it's an easy example for me. And they're showing this high value lifestyle, at least in the eyes of the girls here, and they're showing that. And then with a strong frame, they write to them, start a dialogue, and then maybe even just invite them for a certain amount of time to visit them in Dubai, right? So they basically fly them in to Dubai for a certain amount of time to have the dates. Now, at least for me in the beginning, this is a bit of a weird concept since you've never actually met the person in real life. But for a lot of the girls, so they just see it basically like a date. Yeah, he flew me there, and they wouldn't necessarily even feel any obligation towards the guy. Of course, in reality, they're staying at the guy's place, and yeah, they're a little bit dependent on him, I guess, when they get to Dubai. But anyways, that is one thing that you see a lot happening. Is like guys leverage that in order to invite the girls to where they are. Now, as I said at the beginning, that's basically Instagram is the best way, bar actually coming here, right? And the best way entirely, or one of the best ways definitely once you're here, is to leverage your Instagram, right? So you could be in a similar situation, a kind of in-between situation where you're not living here, but you've visited, say, Odessa here this summer, and you went to these bars, these clubs, maybe you went to the opera, whatever, and actually you can then look at those places, or you can tag yourself as being there, or the name of the establishment. Maybe they'll circulate you around and actually write to the girls who are at the same place. And maybe you didn't actually meet them. That's the thing, right? So you're kind of cold calling, but you have some, you're not just some random, you actually are or have been recently in the same place. And that's clear also from your Instagram. I've seen this used pretty effectively by one of my clients. And then afterwards they struck up, a conversation, a dialogue on Instagram, and then they moved off Instagram. They obviously spoke to each other. They didn't just write, hey, come visit me in X country afterwards, but they started chatting and Skyping each other, like having these video calls, and then they met up in another country, and things worked out pretty well in the short term for them. So they had a nice week. In this case, it was in Budapest, right? So it's not like he was sitting in Budapest just writing random girls. It's actually here, same things, going to the same places, and then leverage the fact that he can make the connection on Instagram to start that dialogue, right? So that's another way you can do it. I've also done that in part as well. I've also gone and looked at a party I've been at the day after and see who else was at it, who I didn't meet, and start talking to them, and it has also worked out for me. I have to say that I was able to meet up with a girl and start a relationship of sorts, we'll say, with a girl here in Odessa. So that is kind of the hybrid strategy where you're not actually in that case, I was already here, so I guess you can use it either way, either whether you're living abroad and you're not actually here in Eastern Europe, or you've come to Eastern Europe and gone home, or you're actually here in Eastern Europe. And that is the big thing once you are here, because there's a matchmaker here, and for better or worse, he actually said something very true. Even though it's against his own economic interests, he's actually business interests, since he obviously tries to match people, like fly them in for the weekend from the US, charge them a lot of money, set them up on dates. And he said that the guys who do the best are the guys who spend the longest here, i.e. they move here. And he's actually a good example of that, because he did meet his wife, but he didn't meet it to a dating site or a matchmaker. He actually met her, he says, I think just by chance somewhere. But that's what happens if you spend a lot of time here. So how does Instagram play in if you actually are spending, like a lot of my, we'll take for example the participants on my high-level consultation group, Slavic Utopia Secrets Ukraine, they come for 3 to 12 months per year obviously to Ukraine, if it's the Ukrainian version, I also have them for the other countries in the region. So maybe you're spending 3 months in Russia or maybe 9 months in Belarus, whatever happens to be. How can you then use Instagram to your advantage to really boost your chances in terms of meeting and then successfully dating, having a relationship with the women that you are interested in? So the key to this is building value with your profile, and there is a bit of personal brand marketing, like I mentioned with like social media influencers earlier, who I had seen used it like before they came on a trip here and just talk to lots of women or fly out women to wherever they're staying. You basically can do the same. You can brand yourself on Instagram with the type of photos that you have there, and also what you put in the stories and how you interact with other girls' stories on Instagram. Obviously the women that you're interested in, whether you've met them, which is probably always the best actually if you've had that very strong first interaction or several interactions in real life, and then you manage, we'll say, an Instagram profile to actually build value, make you more attractive to those women in the background. And that's actually what I do with my clients who are in my personalized coaching program called Consigliere Connor, because actually one of the guys who is a consulting client described me as his consigliere, which is Italian for his advisor. It's actually used by the mob a lot, Italian mob in New York, in the US. But anyways, I love the idea that it, well, first of all, it rhymes with my name, Consigliere Connor, and it describes accurately, like, I'm going to be able to advise you one-to-one exactly how to manage both your Instagram and your Tinder profile. Tinder's also, well, I did describe Instagram as the best dating site, partly because definitely to meet the most beautiful women, because they're probably not going to go on Tinder in general, even if they're single, and most beautiful women, because they already have too many options while manage a Tinder account. And they're definitely not going to be on some dodgy marriage site if they're like a 20-year-old Instagram model. Don't fall for that on the PPL or pay-per-letter sites, because they are definitely not genuine in general. So that is one thing that I do. We revamp the client's Instagram and also their Tinder as a correlate to that. And we set them up obviously then with one-to-one calls with me, where I instill the real man mindset, which is again the frame that you need basically in order to be successful dating here, because there are big cultural differences between dating in the West and just basically how we interact with each other in the West. This is the same with all cultures, and here there is quite a big cultural gap that trips up a lot of guys, especially when they come from the West, we find in general. And on top of that, you will get me kind of like me in your pocket in a sense, because you can troubleshoot with me over WhatsApp for the duration of the program. So, you know, you've set up your Instagram profile, you're on a date with some girl you've met at a place I've recommended to you, and then you're not sure what to do next, or this issue has come up, you can always troubleshoot it with me. So Consigliere Connor coaching problem, access down below. There is a link in the description to this video. Go check it out if you are interested in that. So basically the key is to manage your Instagram account so it creates value. So what do I mean by that exact creating value? Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example actually with one of the guys who's already in the program, right? So he has a sailing boat, a yacht, and he loves sailing. So, you know, that's a little bit of a double-edged sword. He says he doesn't want to attract gold diggers, but then obviously he's demonstrating he has a lot of money, right? So that can be one way. If you're not too worried about meeting a gold digger, then yeah, then you can obviously do that and just have lots of videos all the time on the sailing boat and have your whole Instagram about sailing. But we basically put it strategically within his profile. You know, one photo is more than enough, and actually then he can represent his lifestyle through the stories and the clips that he is posting there, also to show things like not just about sailing, right? So maybe go sailing with some friends. This is also part of pre-selection, obviously if they're attractive women, which are in his entourage, who are actually girls he's not dating, just how to include those in that content creation, I guess we can say, for his personal branding. And that actually makes him a lot more attractive to the women that he's already met when he was here in Eastern Europe. And he's able to do, you know, instead of having to always write to the girl or send her something, or God forbid, keep sending her presents, which a lot of guys fall in the trap of, just becoming sponsor number 10. He's able to create value by leveraging his Instagram properly, right? So that's part of what we do on the coaching program, one-to-one, Consigliere Connor. And if you are not on my free mailing list, it is the place where I let you know about all my new programs, and I don't announce them here on YouTube. This might be the first time you're even hearing about Consigliere di Conor, at least one of the first times, and that's because I already launched it, I think it was 4 or 5 months ago, to those on my free mailing list. And the way to get on that, there is a link down below, also in the description. You're going to get a free checklist, 5 biggest mistakes made by Western guys when they come here to Eastern Europe to date the local beautiful women. So that's a bit of a no-brainer. Basically, you get that free checklist and you can avoid those mistakes. And then later on, you'll get notified when I open new programs or have some sort of special offer. That is what that free mailing list is about. That is the end of today's video. Drop a comment down below. If you've used Instagram, you've used another website, let me know how it compares to other things that you've seen online. From what I've seen, both with myself, my clients, my friends, participants in my online programs, this is the most powerful tool in terms of boosting your chances with beautiful women. And I think it actually applies almost everywhere over the world, unless Instagram is not very popular amongst women where you're based at the moment. But definitely here in Eastern Europe, I mean, they're just basically glued to it about half the day at the moment. Maybe TikTok in the future will become a real competitor for that. Also another website to our app to consider. And let me know basically your thoughts about your experience both with Instagram and other sites and how they pair up. Because think about it, just as a parting comment, like if this was still the mid-1990s, we'll say, so the Soviet Union has fell and basically most of the republics are in complete disarray, the economy has collapsed, people couldn't really even travel even though they wanted to leave, I'm sure a lot of them. And if you were a foreign guy wanting to meet a woman here, you could fly in here and you can meet them one-to-one by going, I guess, out to a club or a bar. But it was pretty hard, you're pretty limited, right? And definitely for the women here, they couldn't really make contact with you outside. We didn't even have, I think, email at that stage. So you can imagine having to call on the telephone and whatnot. And that's actually why you had this business with all these matchmaking and romance tours and marriage agencies. That's actually how it started, because they basically put a site where they're able to connect these people who, were basically looking to match with each other to a certain extent. And that was something that was probably of value, probably even genuine then. And I have a podcast where I talk about how that complete model is doomed if it wants to be at least legitimate, a complete scam, because basically things like Instagram just blow it out of the water, or even Tinder, right? It's free, and you can, of course, you don't have to invest very much. You don't have to go to a marriage agency and sign yourself up or whatever and go through a process. You can actually meet people straight away. So it's a parting comment to really explain how technology has transformed dating globally, and especially here in Eastern Europe. It is at the top end, at least for the very most beautiful women, completely internationalized. They can, I guess for want of a better word, market themselves or brand themselves on Instagram and just get 100x their potential to reach guys that they're interested in. And you have to focus on being one of those guys. So see you very soon in the next video. Do pobачення, до свидання from Odessa Mama on this pretty phenomenal mid-September's Indian summer's evening. Ciao, ciao.
SAR Experience.